We are going to talk about the general prologue to the Canterbury Tales and the Merchant's Prologue and Tale. First of all, I would like to put in perspective the setting and the background information to this text and the poem. It is set in the medieval period, and this is a period that was characterized by military exploits that was clearly shown through chivalry, medieval chivalry. Knights had to leave their homes to fight abroad for the wars of their lords in order to improve in their ranks in the knighthood and for honor. The more the many battles a knight fought, the more his rank was increased and the more honor he got from the state. The state and the church had a lot of influence on the lives of the people. The social structure was feudal due to the conquest of the Normans who ushered in a pattern of land distribution and tenure. Power trickled from the king down to the nobles and to the middle class and finally to the peasants or the serfs. The lands provided material support for the king's palace and to finance his various wars. The society was also stratified, and each class had its own privileges, duties, and obligations. The upper class, for example, enjoyed privileges such as appointments in high places of office in the state, voting right, large incomes, and ownership of land that the low class did not have access to. The most valuable commodity during the medieval period was land, and all landowners were extremely rich people. This land was handed down to middlemen who were caretakers, and they looked for the peasants to work on the land as sharecroppers, and the harvest was shared among the three of them. The church played a predominant role in the lives of the people, and it had a lot of influence. Even kings and queens were subjected to the spiritual authority and control of the Pope, whose representative in England was the Archbishop of Canterbury. Under King Henry II, there was conflict between the state and the church, as the state wanted the church to be under its control, leading and resulting to the assassination of the Archbishop of Canterbury, Sir Thomas à Becket, by 4 knights in the church in Canterbury in 1170. The church had much land and controlled much wealth through the collection of tithes. Officials were appointed by the church to assess individuals' possessions in cash and kind in order to ascertain what the owner had to give as tithes to the church. And this pushed many of those people, officials, to become very corrupt. The church had ecclesiastical courts controlled by the archdeacons to try Christians and church ministers who had faltered in one way or the other. And the punishment ranged from defrocking ministers or those who work in the church, excommunication, physical labor for the church, or purchase of papal indulgences. The papal indulgence was a piece of paper signed by the Pope, for which a sinner or a culprit had to buy for the forgiveness or the pardon of their sins. The church also controlled the education that the children were exposed to in the monasteries, and the monasteries became the center of education, formal education, which have now become the great universities that we know, like Sorbonne, Cambridge, and Oxford. Lastly, the church encouraged people to embrace monastic lives and to go on pilgrimages. Through monastic life, the people will have to practice self-denial, live a life of chastity, poverty, and they have to be prayerful and hard-working, and also live a secluded life. The main reason for such pilgrimages was to do penance for the forgiveness of their sins and for thanksgiving. Sometimes it was also undertaken simply for spiritual renewal by those who thought that their spiritual lives had gone down. Traveling during this period was done mainly on foot or horseback through winding paths in the forest, and many people took these journeys for specific purposes. The most common reason that people made journeys during this time were for businesses or for pilgrimages. It was a slow and dangerous process to travel because armed robbery was very common. Consequently, people traveled in groups and carried small weapons for their personal protection. The church discouraged nuns from undertaking pilgrimages out of fear that they may be distracted, exposed to worldliness, or to sexual harassment. The dressing of the medieval period could protect one from cold, display one's profession, or one's social status in the society. There was a lot of vanity and extravagance in the dressing during this period. The dressing of the women were more criticized, and they used a lot of cosmetics. Some women plucked one of their teeth to create a false gap tooth to associate themselves with nobility or high class. The sumptuary laws prescribed the type of dresses to be worn that corresponded to people's profession and the class. For example, peasants could not wear dresses of colors such as white, purple, and gray. The middle class or businessmen or professionals created associations to protect their pageant rights known as guilds. They were a very strong force to reckon with, especially when it concerns civil matters. It should be noted that this system of life was in such a way that everybody knew where they rightfully belong. And you could not move up the ladder no matter your level of education. You had to do things according to the rank and class to which you belong.